Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Road to Sustainability. Now, you've probably seen these floating across your appliances, your TV, fridge, washing machine. This is an energy rating label. It's a star rating, well in this case it's out of 6. This is energy consumption per annum, but there are a number of other initiatives that the government has put in place for consumers to be more informed of how efficient a property is, or in this case, how efficient an appliance is. Today, I've got a gentleman by the name of Tim Forcey who's coming around, and he is part of the Victorian state government initiative called the Victorian Residential Efficiency Scorecard. And today we're going to do an assessment of my house.
Hey James.
Tim, welcome. Come in.
James, thanks for having me into your house today to assess your home using the Victorian Residential Efficiency Scorecard. So my name's Tim Forcey and I am a home energy advisor, and in recent times I've become qualified to offer this Victorian Residential Efficiency Scorecard, which is a program by the Victorian government. Just a bit about myself. For many, many years I worked in industrial energy as a chemical engineer in the oil and gas industry, but in more recent times I've gotten involved on the residential side. And James, we met through the Facebook group that I started called My Efficient Electric Home, which is a Facebook group where we've now got more than 3,000 members, people getting online and collaborating about ways to improve the efficiency and sustainability of their home. So it's been great to meet you through the Facebook group and to understand that you're interested in creating some of these videos. So today we're going to see if we can go around through every room in your house and measure every room and measure every window and put all this information into this computer tool, which is the scorecard. And so the first room we're going to look at is the kitchen here, and there'll be a lot more detail that goes into the tool, but just as a first walk through, I'm noticing that we've got ducted gas heating. Is that right, James?
We actually don't, but it's all still there, yeah.
So it hasn't been decommissioned yet? You haven't put a bullet through it?
We've turned the gas off completely.
Right, but you haven't cut the cord, put a bullet through it, anything like that?
No.
Okay, so unfortunately that means it still needs to be counted in the scorecard.
It's physically there.
It's physically
but
there.
It's not connected.
If you don't use it anymore. And that allows me to make the point that your star rating just went up by cutting the cord.
Yeah, wow.
So James, this is your ducted gas system, which you're not using anymore.
Yes.
And but it's still possible that it could be used. And so in that case, in the scorecard, I'd have to say that you have ducted gas.
Yeah.
The ducted gas is very expensive to operate, and you have other options. You can heat your house, I guess, with the reverse cycle air conditioners.
Yep.
Right, and so you're not interested in using the gas anymore.
Not at all.
And so that we don't have to put it into the scorecard, it needs to be officially decommissioned, which you're going to do by cutting the cord. So go for it. There you go. So now I don't need to mention that you've got ducted gas heating as a way to heat your home,
yep.
And your scorecard rating has automatically gone up because the scorecard recognizes that it can be far cheaper to heat a home with reverse cycle air conditioners than by using the ducted gas.
So we're going to go
to the gas meter.
To the gas meter. All right, let's go to the gas meter. So the question was basically, do we have gas here? And because we've just cut the cable on the underfloor ducted heating, gas heating, is my wife going to be upset that I've done that? And the answer is no, because we've disconnected the gas as soon as we came in. We got the heat pump, disconnected the gas because we already had an induction cooktop, so there was no reason for us to have gas.
It took a bit of looking, but I found it here. So here's the valve that James has shut off for the gas meter. So like he says, he's not using any gas anymore. Of course, someone else could come along if they purchased the house and turn it back on again. But basically, James, you don't get a gas bill. No, because the gas is all shut off.
Yep.
You're using heat pump for hot water. You've got an induction cooktop, and we just cut the cord on the ducted gas, so you're not going to be using that again. You're going to be purchasing some reverse cycle air conditioners for heating. So there you go, a home with no gas. Very good. Now we're looking to see if you've got underfloor insulation. James, you've said that you do not. And in fact, I've looked under the house And I've seen that we don't have any underfloor insulation. While we're here, I guess we'll just walk around the house and see everything from the outside. But we've got aluminum framed single glazed windows. We don't have anything in the way of eaves protecting these windows on the lower floor because it is south. Up at the top we do have some eaves there. This is more south.
It's a northeast facing house.
So you were saying, when was it built?
Late 70s.
Right, so yeah, here we're looking at the front of the house, and so it's the late 1970s brick veneer construction.
The glorious solar.
Right, so here we have James' solar system. So can you tell me a bit about it?
So when we bought this house, we actually had this 2 kilowatt system already installed with a 5 kilowatt inverter. And since then we've commissioned another solar company, Energy Matters, to install 6.5 kilowatt PV array. So effectively we've got 8.5 kilowatts.
Very good. So as part of the scorecard input, we'll be putting in the information on how big your solar system is. Well done.
Yep, great.
Right, and so here we have some wood framed windows for east, and we don't have any external shading. So the scorecard will come back in its recommendations. It'll say get some external shading for the east side. That would help in the summertime from keeping the home from warming up as fast as it does. Here we're around to the north side, and here we do have some external shading for the north side, so we'll take that into account in the scorecard. And I'm looking, we're on the north side still, and up the top we do have some eaves there which will help for shading the windows up top. But down below here we do have a bit of an overhang, so that's all part of the scorecard. And here we are around to the west side of the house, and I do see an external awning that's been installed there, so that's excellent for, I guess there's a window under there, I can't actually see it, yeah, for protecting keeping the western sun off of the house. So we see that, but upstairs we don't have any external protections for those windows. So again, the scorecard's going to come back and say get some external shading for east, west, and north windows. And here we have something that looks quite familiar to me because I've got the same thing at home, which is a sand and heat pump hot water heater. And most people don't know how heat pumps work. They actually are able to capture free renewable heat out of the air. Yes, so if you've got solar PV on your roof, and if you don't get paid a lot for putting excess electricity onto the grid, a good way to use it is to buy an efficient heat pump like this that can capture free heat from the air. You use your electricity to run the compressor. You heat the water, say, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. This tank's now full of hot water. It's well insulated, and so you'll have hot water for the next 24 hours. When you get a system like this set up, you're basically looking at the cheapest hot water in the world. So well done, James, with this quite sophisticated, modern, and efficient heat pump hot water system.
Okay, cool.
Great. Well, we're inside now, which is great because it was too cold outside. And what we're going to do next is we're going to test the 3 showers that James has in his home. This is all part of the scorecard. So I'll turn the showers on full, and we'll run it for 30 seconds and see how much water we get into my calibrated bucket. Okay, that's running. That's 8 liters a minute for the shower head. So a 3-star rated shower head is 7 to 9 liters a minute. Here we've got 8, so this is a 3-star shower head, I'd presume, and that's fine.
I wouldn't worry about that one. I would worry about those ones.
Go. All right, we're not getting all of it. Okay, now we can get all of it. Yes, we're going. I'm getting a bath here. Okay. Boom. There we are. Okay, that's also about, it's about 8 liters a minute as well. So you were concerned that might be excessive, but it's doing a good job. Again, it would be in that 7 to 9 liter a minute range, which is the 3-star rated. Here we've got 8 liters a minute. I've been in houses where the shower head does 50. So it's 50 liters a minute. You can drain a water tank pretty quickly if you've got a shower head like that.
Cannot get to it, firstly.
Okay, no, it's done.
Because there's stuff in the way. But yeah, there's 2 shower heads and then those really old school.
Right, so that could be, one. If I measured one that was 50 liters a minute, it looked like that. And also sometimes you'll find that someone has put like a little flow restrictor in even an old-fashioned shower head like that. $150 on a new shower head. A way to reduce your water use is to buy a $3 flow restrictor and stick it in an old shower head like that. And often you can get still a nice shower, but with a much reduced water use. We had what? There's 3 basically at 8 liters a minute, counting 2 in that one. Okay, pools and spas, none? Oh, yeah, okay, good. All right, so heating. Well, we need to continue the tour. I haven't really seen your air conditioners yet.
There isn't any.
So that whole speech I had there about how you heat your home with your reverse cycle air conditioner is wrong.
At the moment, are these Dyson things?
I thought you had to.
Not wrong necessarily. I mean, the wife wants to get air conditioning.
Right, okay. So we've decommissioned your gas heating. And so the only form of heating you have now are these type of electrical air-blown devices. This is resistive electric heating. 1 unit of electricity you buy gives you 1 unit of heat. So you could say that's 100% efficient. And you might say, well, that sounds great. But what you'll want to be looking at getting in future, that I thought you already had, is reverse cycle air conditioners, because they're heat pumps, like that sand and hot water system we saw. They're heat pumps that can get free heat from the air outside your house and bring it inside. But the thing is, these days, if you get a high star rated reverse cycle air conditioner, they are just so efficient you'll find that they don't actually cost that much to run.
Yep.
It's not like in the old days 30 years ago when you had this big box air conditioner sitting in your window. You turned that on and all the lights dimmed because it was using so much power. These days an efficient one just ticks along and can cool off an area. A problem with the evaporative cooling is that you'll find that it's got many holes that it introduces into the room. Is that one there?
So there's one there, there's one up here,
Right.
there's one in the hallway,
So
there's one in here.
the system's still functioning,
At the moment, yeah.
but you've got it blocked off for the winter time to try and prevent some of the heat from
Yeah.
getting away from you. Yeah. That's the problems you find is they say that evaporative cooling costs more to operate in winter than in summer. And how can that be?
Because
You don't
of the
even
heat
turn
loss,
it
right?
on because of the heat losses straight up those ducts.
Yeah.
So, certainly then...
I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, and if the layout of the house is such that I can actually see some of those ducts from the attic space, you'll find that it also corrupts the insulation. So a better idea is to, if possible, if you don't need it anymore, get rid of the evaporative cooling, get the ducts out of the way, seal up these holes and properly insulate the ceiling space. And if you need to stay cool on a few days in Melbourne, that's where the refrigerative air conditioner comes in. For purposes of the video, perhaps we don't need to film in every single bedroom and every single room, but what we'll be doing is we'll be going around measuring all the floor space, measuring the windows, which way are they facing, east, west, north, south, what sort of window treatments do we have, are the wood frames aluminum or are they timber, and all that information will go into the scorecard.
Cool, let's do it.
But actually, what could be fun is the attic space. So,
Sure.
when we get in the attic space, do I need...
Yeah, so basically what I did here was I just cut some melamine sheet, put some magnetic strips on it all, and then that just sticks across there so that the air obviously doesn't poke up in there. But yeah,
Now to get into the attic space, what are we going to do here?
disassemble it all.
Great. Okay. Well, as part of the scorecard, we need to assess and cite the ceiling insulation as a very important parameter. I've been in a lot of homes where they have no ceiling insulation at all, which is pretty horrible. But James, you've done what looks to be a big DIY job here, putting insulation into your roof space. Normally I'd have a head torch. I left that home today, but we'll have a look around and take some photos.
Might also note that this ceiling space here, we added a set of like 90mm bats underneath this sheet. So originally it's plasterboard, and we built out the frame, added the insulation, and then put another set of plasterboard over it. So I've done that here, and I've also done some insulated panels upstairs as well, which I'll show you in a minute.
So I've had my head up into the attic space there, and I can see the insulation on this part of the house. But James has also insulated this bulkhead, and this is something that people hardly ever do. People seem to understand that you should insulate a ceiling, but they don't realize that this is also part of the ceiling, just because it's running vertically. And this area here would just be incredibly hot if it weren't insulated. So this entire bulkhead, if it were uninsulated in the summer, would be acting as a giant heater to heat up this whole room, and it would probably be unlivable on a hot day. So good on you, James. You've put up some bats on this vertical surface, which can be a bit tricky to do, to try and insulate it and keep that heat up. Yeah, just a few words on draft proofing and how much air is leaking into the house. They say that the average Melbourne home has air gaps that would be like a window of about at least a square meter, or maybe two, being open all the time from all the different gaps and cracks that you find throughout a home. So one example we see here is this wall vent. So up here we have this fairly standard thing from this era. Then using whatever method you like to plug up those gaps, so you can go online and see different videos and things as to how to deal with that. Draft proofing and various gaps in a house. Well, James has decommissioned his ducted gas heating now, so he might want to think about what he's going to do about this. First of all, you've got gaps here, obviously, that if you were still using the ducted gas heating, well, great, you'd have the hot air coming out of here, but it would suck cold air up through the floor as well, through all these enormous holes. These should be, I can even feel the draft right now. Right now I can just feel there's just air pouring through here. With the scorecard, we're also looking at whether we've got cracks in the floorboards that penetrate all the way through and are a way to leak air into the house.
On the list for me.
Skirting board gaps is another thing we look at for the scorecard. Whether or not you have skirting board gaps, quite often you'll find these if a carpet's been pulled up, that there would have been a gap there that the carpet was hiding, and when the carpet comes up you can see it quite easily. Here's a little bit of a gap around the window, and yeah, those might have been filled in to a certain extent already, but quite often we find big gaps there around the windows. Anything that is not really obvious to the eye, you might consider the builder might not have finished the job. And I can actually feel a bit of cold air coming through there, I think, coming right around the window frame. You know, weather stripping on doors. This is an aluminum set, and it does have some weather stripping there. That's the sort of thing that we put into the scorecard too. Okay. Another thing the scorecard's looking for in particular is downlights. And so some of the disasters in the past is where we had halogen downlights, which use a lot of electricity. And also because they were very hot, they had to have gaps around them. So in the scorecard, we put in whether we have halogen downlights and whether there's big air gaps around them. These days, a lot of people are retrofitting the halogens with an LED light. And that's what James has here, is he has LED lights, which use only 1/10 of the electricity of a halogen light.
All of this ceiling and even this wall. And so this is the completed version of it.
Okay.
Here's some of it over here.
But I didn't.
That I never.
So I've seen the insulation, but the bit of having plaster stuck to it, we're not going to have time to do the job. Yeah, so with 8.5 kilowatts of solar and no fixed heating, you're 10 star.
Is that, are you sure about that?
Yeah. You got no gas bill.
Yeah.
You're probably getting paid for your electricity.
Yeah.
10 star.
Yeah. Cool. The scorecard itself is really like, it's the cost, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more cost. Like I said right at the beginning, on the chart there with the star rating, it says efficiency, whereas really it's talking about cost for the fixed equipment. I used to work in industrial energy with like chemical plants and oil refineries, etc. And as a chemical engineer, we had computer programs for those, and we would simulate the performance of an oil refinery.
Yeah.
Houses are harder because there's just so many variables. Every house is different. The orientation with the sun, whether or not it's got cracks and gaps, the equipment that's being used, and then if you wanted to try and make it even more complicated, then you can add on the equipment that's not fixed in the home and the behaviors of the people living there. How do they use all that? There's a million variables that you'd have to put into a program. I think the scorecard does serve a purpose. that we described earlier on. And so for those reasons, I think that it can have value for giving people an idea of the cost. The star rating is, as I said, based on cost, but you will find other comments in a report that talk about how does the house perform during hot weather. So without turning on an air conditioner, it gives you a scale of like 1 to 5 there, a hot weather rating. How easy is it to keep the home cool without turning on active air conditioning? And most Melbourne homes, largely because of the large glassed areas that we have, will rate pretty poorly on that scale. So that's giving you an idea about comfort. And you would also find other comments when we finish the job here for your house. We'd find other comments where it's saying your building shell is not that great. And so it could be improved, and comfort could be improved by addressing things such as the draft proofing or upgrading the windows or better window treatments, etc. So yeah, that star rating is all just about cost. And I'm happy with that because cost is what drives a lot of people. But in terms of comfort, you will find some other comments in that short little 2-page report about that as well. Even though we're not going to be able to finish the job on your house here today, James, this gives you an idea of how you input information to the scorecard. So this is one that I prepared earlier, and you can see all the different zones in the house. So you go around, you measure every room, and you input bedroom 1, bedroom 2, toilet and laundry, kitchen, whatever you have in a house, you can name all the zones. And so, for example, here in bedroom 1, it asks you about the ceiling insulation. It asks you about the floor area and what type of floor is it and whether it's insulated or not. Windows, you can put in information about the windows that you have in that particular zone. Is it west facing? How high? How wide? Single glazing, double glazing? Are there external overhangs? Are there heavy drapes? Are there all those sorts of parameters for windows? For walls, same thing. How tall are the walls? Do they have insulation in them? And from that, it derives the rating and all the suggestions for improvement. In fact, we'll come back in a sec. We'll look at some of the output. All right, so here's again, another one I prepared earlier. So this home was a large family home. Nothing really unusual about it, but it rated 2 stars. It had no solar PV system. It did have ducted gas heating. It had gas hot water. But otherwise, it's a fairly normal home, not very well insulated, no double glazing in the windows. And it rated the 2 stars. Low efficiency, very low efficiency it says, and in fact high cost because it was a fairly large home as well. But most of the cost is in the heating here in Melbourne. We do worry about our summers and the cost of running an air conditioner in summer, but really the largest cost that people find for the fixed equipment in a home has to do with the heating. And that's what you see here, 86% heating. And then here's the last page of the report with more information. And here it says, your home's building shell has a very low rating. So only getting 1 block here means that it has a low rating. And here's where it mentions improvement options, such as upgrading the insulation, double glazed windows, blocking the chimney again.
And this is what you get at the end of
this is the 2-page report.
Well, Tim, thanks so very much for coming out and having a look at my house. And unfortunately, we didn't get the scorecard, but maybe we'll get it when you come back from your trip. And so, yeah, for you guys out there, make sure to check out the Facebook group, My Efficient Electric Home, and also the Scorecard website, which is victorianenergysaver.vic.gov.au.
That sounds pretty good.
Very similar to that. You can just Google it. I'm sure you know how to use the internet. But yeah, thanks very much, Tim.
Okay, all right. Very good.
See you next time.
Good luck with it.